Hey everybody, BTO Pro here. Guess what I'm going to talk about? It's going to be hacks. Shocking. Woo! So I haven't been doing a lot of videos lately because I've been talking about hacks again. Shocking. But so a lot of enhancements to system, a lot of experimental functionality added in. I'm taking releases a little bit more seriously as far as numerical point releases for the project, and that's because we're hitting a point where we can start to integrate this into a lot of stuff. It's kind of hashing out. We have a lot of people contributing to the various integration points, both in Drupal 8, which is reaching stability, and in Grav CMS, and just internal with our own app and stuff. So I just wanted to give an update, show some of that stuff. So I've wiped out a ton of issues in here. Also noticed the other day we've peaked over 100 issues closed on this. It's kind of crazy at this point. But a big one here that I wanted to touch on is this blocks grid plate tag issue. Now I have everything checked off to say, hey, we actually did this, but it's still experimental. And actually now, I'm going to close it. It is experimental, but it's in there. So what this is, we go back here, hit edit. So we've got the same UX pattern scene. I can take elements on the page. I can delete them. Oh gosh, that video. Okay, all that's fine. But you right now, if you're taking this and putting this paragraph over here, you're doing some wonky stuff with like floats. You can see this has like a positioning, right? You can see it gets kind of messy really quick because you have elements floating left and right, and that's not responsive. That's fake responsive, right? So what we really need is like a grid or a way of doing rows and columns and things like that. So get rid of all these goals and principles of hacks. All that. Okay, so if I go to preferences, you see there's a layouts button here. It's grayed out, and I hit developer mode. It activates the layouts button. It also, if I go into export, it activates a bunch of other stuff. So I can actually wipe this whole thing and hit import, and I've wiped the entire grid of stuff. It's kind of fun. I'm going to reload because do it this way. Oh, okay, so I hit import, imports everything, or I hit import, there, it's all gone. Sweet. Okay, so now that activates the layouts button and preferences here. So if I hit layouts, you can see there's two layouts listed here. I'm not going to tell anyone, I didn't warn you, it's experimental. So if I inject a 2-column layout, I get two things that are actually pegged together. The grid setting, I'm not positive I can update that. Oh, I can. Okay, so there's 3 grid places here, but you'll see there's no width to this. Now, if I do scaling, it's actually, see, it's like scaling and repositioning that section together as a chunk. Similar to before, I can duplicate it, right? So I still have those same considerations. And then this was why an aspect before was so important, is like I've selected the grid, right? And we need probably something visually to indicate that. But if I click on this interior element, you'll see the options change, right? And that's because you can select a thing and a thing. And if I can select a thing and a thing, it means I can independently scale and manipulate that one thing, but it's still in the larger grid plate, right? So I can kind of let these things scale relative to what they're in, but also, kind of flow. There we go. All right, so we'll do that, go back to grid plate, and do the full width, right? So get rid of that. I can kill off just that one element in the grid plate, or I can kill off the whole grid plate. And that's what thing and a thing nets us. Now, if we throw down a different layout, start on 3-column, you'll see, there we go, 3-column. Now what this actually is putting down, and I could hit the settings gear, you'll see there's nothing there right now. Again, it's experimental. Or if I hit the settings gear on this one, I could change that over to media or what have you. So part of this is leveraging, it's going to have to leverage these placeholders, which I could take a placeholder and then I could say convert to Gizmo, and I could put in a self-check or testimonial or something. And then we would have that in place and, be able to theoretically hit and update that. I mean, I'm legit serious when I say it's experimental. Please take that very seriously. But what this is it's just another element. And so it's an element that implements something called responsive grid, and responsive grid row, and just responsive utility. So I'll have to talk to Nikki worked more specifically on this, part with the grids. I'll have to talk to her about how best she thinks we could integrate this. But basically, you're laying down a grid plate tag, and a grid plate is leveraging its slots to basically put these in place. So if we were to look at what the code for a grid plate looks like, pull one up here. There we go. Okay, so a grid plate is effectively just a predefined row and column structure. And so part of where I definitely am going to need guidance from other people on the best way to do this is, you see we have this slot area, 1, 2, and 3. And so effectively, thinking we could have, like 4, 5, 6, and that these would behave according to what put them down here, right? So this is where I get a little confused. I definitely need some help with this. So if I had 6 items, I could do like this, copy paste, and then we would have to go through and we'd rename all the area 1s to area 4, 5, and 6. And so if you think of this as kind of like thing, 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 it's basically we're like creating this prototype that we're going to then, the first item that dumps into the higher level element is going to get slotted here, and the second here, and the third here, and then we wrap those in columns, and now we have them in a row, and that's how you get that little responsive relationship there. So that item disappeared a second ago. I'll show you why, but so right now that's because under advanced, this slot area 2 doesn't always keep, or it doesn't actually transition over. So when I do gizmo and we convert that to a QR code, I go to advanced, see slot doesn't keep. So, but if I define area 1, it moved over to here because it's still inside of its parents. I need to select it first. There we go. QR data is going to be like BTO Pro. Right, so we can encode my screen name, make it larger, still have access to those silly little things in HAX that we take for granted now. Update, and it'll update in place correctly, which it didn't a second ago. And the reason it didn't a second ago is because I hit this and I did area 1. Well, if I don't have area 1 defined there, let's say it's area 3. Okay, so that's moving it over there, right? It's not changing the order and all in any way. It's still the third item, effectively, sitting in the shadow root, but then it gets pushed over to here because of where it reparents it to. It's kind of a weird concept with Shadow DOM and the whole slots thing. But this would basically allow us, in this case, to have a 3-column layout. Now I need a better way to handle this part, but if I did area 2, now we're going to get it in that second column. Now I don't have a way right now, like it's one of these, like we're kind of ramping up to things like drag and drop as well, right? Because if we get the convert a thing figured out, and we get the disconnecting of the grid plate from the actual thing being worked against, right? Those are 2 constructs that are kind of needed in order to build towards take this thing and drag it and then reparent it, right? Because then we have the target grid plate is disconnected from the active item, is disconnected from the active grid plate. And so that's kind of the state of where we are with our layout management. Ideally, in this grid plate tag, we would have a button or something to like add, and you'd hit add, and basically it would then generate kind of similar to the make or the find, right? That you would be doing those operations, maybe these 3 buttons, and you would just click the button there. And then based on taking you over to, we'll say it's find in this case in YouTube, and I find something on YouTube to put in there, that it would then know to automatically place area 1 here. And now, that has no implication because it's not inside this tag. I don't have the ability to reparent this item, so you can see some of the limitations of where that's at right now. But it's kind of like we've got all these little constructs there. Another part of where I think this will get easier visually to express is right now there's these buttons over here, like make is effectively the exact same as if I hit the make button, right? That just triggers that to open, and this triggers find, in case you were like down here and you want to click because you're really lazy, you can't move up there. But that idea of like in context, right? So if we did that with these flyouts, that if instead of this whole drastic flyout thing and taking up a lot of visual area here, that if I clicked one of these, that it just kind of did it there, and you could like search in place, right, that would then give the visual sense of like, oh, well, I'm working on a thing that's going to add right to this part of the grid plate. Another consideration with grid plates is definitely going to come down to like visualizing what they are, or setting global breakpoints as well. But you know, just had a question come up about layouts in this, and I have said it's something we need to add. So I just wanted to show what the state of that is. How those get generated is off of the App Store spec, which if we show one of these app stores, I think this is the right one. It might not. Oh no, it's an older one. Let me make sure I open this one. I think is right. Okay, so in the App Store spec, we have apps, and the apps help express the definition of how to talk to something else. So that's where YouTube and Vimeo come in. Then there's stacks, and a stack is like a template, so that I could say, throw in about this course, and it basically just stamps in there a whole bunch of elements in order. So it's kind of like playing a bunch of elements. You can see it in here with a stack, and a stack is, you know, like, hey, rip this HAX element to the page, and this HAX element, which will turn into a DOM node, is, well, make an H2 tag, stuff this in the content of it. And that's how you get that on the page. So a block is, or blocks, is similar, where there's some detail, which visually represents it. And then there's, you know, hey, this is this block, and this block is made up of a, okay, so add a tag called placeholder, properties, set slot area 1, and its type should be text, right? So that's setting the properties or attributes on this item. And also, you know, injecting text inside of it. So just as easily in these placeholders, and the reason I do this with text, I think Ipsum is all well and good, but it's kind of obnoxious to constantly have to, you know, visualize this silly text and then go and copy and paste silly text. It'd be better to just have something that looks like text, that when you click it, it turns into a paragraph to start typing or something. But this effectively, you know, just because that laid down those two placeholders doesn't mean it always has to. We could actually put in kind of whatever we want. So to illustrate this, let's go over to, whoops, no, I don't want poly rebuild. Wrong command, serve, open. Okay, so I'll go to that. And this should be the, correct file system to open. Period, okay, and then we're gonna take that App Store spec. Oh, yeah, it is the right directory because that builds there. We're going to take App Store, and we're going to change this block. So we're going to say that this block now is going to have another one that gets added into area 1. It's a placeholder, but here we're going to have it interject an H2 tag. Not going to have any properties, and the content is going to be, see what I did here. So we'll save, refresh our, now this is a demo, or sorry, locally delivered space instead of the demo. So open up developer mode, layouts, inject 2 columns. Okay. Oh. May not have actually saved the one in question there. That would be kind of funny. It would appear that I did not actually load off of that file. It's supposed to have that H2 there now, isn't it? Oh, there we go. Okay, so you can see it right there. It probably is there, but there's no slot defined. The slot is what currently, in the way that we're doing these, they actually show up. So go, whoop, again, not templates, developer mode, layouts, 2 column. There we go. Now I see what I did there. And so the major difference between these two concepts is templates and layouts is a template that's going to throw down text, right? This is like, hey, stamp this. And so now this about course, I can just hit there and delete. But it's not in any gridded structure. Now I could throw into the template like the layout thing. I guess they are similar concepts, but the things in a block will always get injected into a grid layout. So now I can move this whole grid plate down. I can scale the whole thing up or down as we showed before, and I can easily modify what the contents of this will be. So that's the state of layouts and what our thinking is on them. Another thing that I got done just the other day is I have these builds that are out there now. I need to actually point to them from HAX. But the idea with the builds are that you can just point to this and hit a CDN and pull all of HAX in. And this should really ease integrations with different systems that I'm not aware of, since I wrote a lot of the initial Drupal and backdrop and grab and stuff and integrations. But we also want to add these into those because then you should be able to kind of like how you can hit jQuery via CDN to have a no config, no install load of the thing. While I would not recommend it for production usage, it could be a really powerful way to get going and playing with HAX and know that you're not getting caught up in like dependency management hell. That it might be some other issue, might conflict with something in your app or whatever. But so the builds are there to try and ease integrations, reduce it down to a single point. The other thing is the desktop app, which has seen serious progress. So let's do npm start, and I'm going to run this from local. But so here's my little thing. I did this talk at Lili 2018. So when I click that, it pulls open this little outline here. And so we're still doing UX work on it, obviously. But so I could hit Gutenberg printing press, and in this case, I have the page that loads. And then I can see this is way down here. It needs to be up higher. But so if I click anywhere in the body, HAX gets activated effectively. So I don't want this to be called Gutenberg printing press, or I want that not to be bold. Let's get this printing party started like it's 1400 or whatever year that came out. I don't know when it came out. But so you can see I could do HAX work. In here, I can do all the same operations I could previously, right? If I want to search NASA, call up microgravity and make a meme out of it, I can do that. And then if I want to add something, which let me find a file to add, but I call this open, and when I put me up there, do local files, then it actually is going to save this file to the right part of my directory tree. And then I can present me, let's say, as a self-check, and this guy again. So I can, get some feedback on my alt data. Who is this? Someone awful. All right, and so that then I can check and say, hey, someone awful, sweet. And I don't want this to be blue. Let's make it like yellow. There we go. So I can insert that, and then we'll hit save, and now if I'm building out content, right, maybe I'm outlining the content, and I say, well, space travel is actually under here, and HAX is part of that, like it stems from the printing press, and the license is important, but why HAX? Because it's awesome. So that I can build out and model the outline of what this material is as I need it, and then hit save, and now I've updated the outline so that I'm building out this content outline. Go to because I'm awesome. And we'll just throw out a bunch of nothingness, okay? Let's save. Then what I could do is I have Lili 2018. I'll look on my desktop for it. And so Lili 2018, that just wrote a outline.json from the app that we could look at and see. It's pretty straightforward. Outline.json, top item has no parent, right? These other ones have parents. Or, our children and parent relationships, what the title, what HTML file to load. Then it takes all the content that I wrote and it generates HTML files. And so, they're not going to preview correctly here, but you can see what all the HTML files are. Then in the app, right? So if you envision a workflow where I'm building out all of this content, I'm saving to my actual production endpoints, but I'm using a local desktop, right? Because we can compile this to PC, Mac, Linux, all those. So I'm done, and I want to publish this somewhere. I can open this up and say open in Finder. Good, just takes me right there. It's a nice little shortcut. And then I can do generate build. And generate build is going to think a little bit. We need to improve this. Its performance on PC is atrocious, but when I do generate build, it's going to generate all the assets I need for a static website. So there's those assets. I had uploaded some previously. There's my little Rocket Man image. There's my content again. And now here's the Bower components and outline.json, but here's a special index file that knows how to play all of this statically. So let's power down the app, go to my desktop, and it's like HAX desktop examples and Lili 2018. And then if I go into docs and I'm going to do Polymer Serve. I don't need to. Like, you could do this with any web server. This is just to force a little web server to load, but you can see that it's taken that outline and it's created basically a static offline book. And so there's my microgravity and my self-check, everything exactly as I had it when I was doing it before, but it's leveraging all of these design assets on the desktop that I made on my public-facing websites, hitting endpoints that might be production endpoints, or it could be local file delivery, right, in this case, and then stitching it all together so that I can author a complex website on my desktop, and the developers have done the exact same work that they would have if they, had chosen to work specifically against the web or specifically against a desktop platform. So that's kind of the state of all this. We had some people at a workshop use this to actually publish some little HAX-based OER content up on GitHub. So it's moving along pretty well. We're getting into like auto citation of things. So like this is the legit correct semantic citation associated with this Wikipedia article. It's pretty awesome. Or like a license. This is again a correct legit license, but it's a license element. So that I can just use HAX to license my work properly, or to correctly, pull in the copyright or the metadata associated with where something came from. Because when we start stitching together the universe, it's really important to maintain licensing and to tell people, hey, we didn't make all of this, right? Like I got this picture from over here. So yeah, it's kind of the state of HAX the web as before. We have it in a bunch of different platforms. Really interested in getting people to help out. I went to the wrong address there. Always interested in getting people to contribute, whether on elements or integrations or just debugging. UX feedback is also always appreciated. But we're currently on all these platforms. Drupal 8 is going to be coming online as an official published release soon. Thanks a lot to work from ASU. So yeah, please join the revolution. Heyo.